Arav Malhotra's wedding was meant to be the happiest day of his life, until his bride, Meera Sharma, collapsed before the crowd, poisoned by someone sitting at her own family table. The wedding of Arav Malhotra and Meera Sharma was the kind of celebration that people in Dubai would remember for years. The venue was one of the city's most expensive ballrooms, decorated with white roses, crystal chandeliers, and golden drapes that shimmered under the soft lights. Guests arrived in luxury cars, dressed in designer clothes, whispering about the grand union between the rich businessman and the elegant woman from India. Cameras flashed continuously as the couple entered, hand in hand, smiling as if nothing in the world could touch them. Arav looked confident and proud, while Meera's eyes carried both joy and nervousness. Every step she took seemed heavy, though no one noticed except her. As the ceremony began, the crowd admired their chemistry. The rituals were performed with precision, every custom followed perfectly. Families smiled, laughter echoed, and the air smelled of perfume and fresh flowers. When the priest declared them husband and wife, applause erupted. Arav leaned closer to whisper something to Meera, and she smiled, hiding the unease twisting inside her. To everyone else, it was a dream wedding, a story of love crossing oceans and cultures. But behind the decorations and music, there were small moments of tension. Meera's mother-in-law, Leela Malhotra, kept observing her silently, her eyes sharp and unreadable. Servants moved quickly to please her, knowing how particular she could be about every detail. The photographer caught beautiful moments, unaware that behind those smiles lay secrets that could destroy lives. As the night stretched on, the celebration continued, but a strange heaviness filled the air. No one could have guessed that beneath the glamour and the glitter, something dark was already taking shape, something that would turn the happiest day of Meera's life into her last. For Meera, the weeks leading up to the wedding had been filled with both excitement and fear. She had discovered her pregnancy by accident during a routine checkup just 10 days before her flight to Dubai. At first, she was stunned, then overwhelmed with mixed emotions. She loved Arav deeply, but she knew how traditional his family was. His mother had made it clear from the beginning that appearances mattered more than feelings. Meera wanted to share the news with Arav in person, to see his reaction, but there never seemed to be a right moment. The pressure of the wedding, the endless guests, and the expectations kept her silent. Each night, she promised herself she would tell him tomorrow, but tomorrow never came. She convinced herself it was better to wait until after the ceremony, when they could finally be alone as husband and wife. She imagined him holding her hand, smiling at the thought of becoming a father. But the thought of Leela Malhotra's reaction haunted her. Meera had seen her cold stare many times, a look that could freeze anyone in place. Still, she tried to stay calm and act normal. She avoided alcohol, claiming she didn't drink. She turned away spicy dishes that could upset her stomach. To everyone else, it looked like she was just being shy and polite. But behind her gentle smile was a secret growing inside her, one she guarded with her life. What she didn't know was that someone had already started noticing the changes: her faint tiredness, her sudden pale face, the way she unconsciously touched her stomach when no one was watching. The secret she thought was safe had already started slipping into the wrong hands. Leela Malhotra had built her entire life around control and reputation. She was known among her friends in Dubai's high society circles as a woman who never made mistakes. Her house was spotless, her clothes were perfectly tailored, and her social image was flawless. When Arav told her he wanted to marry Meera, she agreed politely, but deep inside, she had doubts. Meera seemed too simple, too quiet, too different from the kind of woman Leela imagined for her only son. Still, she smiled in public and pretended to accept the match, telling everyone how happy she was. As the wedding preparations began, Leela's doubts grew stronger. She noticed Meera avoiding certain foods, skipping drinks, and often sitting down as if she were exhausted. When guests praised the bride's beauty, Leela's smile never reached her eyes. She couldn't shake off the feeling that something about this girl was not right. She told herself it was just intuition, but her instincts had rarely failed her before. One afternoon, while finalizing the guest list, Leela decided to confirm her suspicions. She quietly contacted a private investigator she had used once for business matters. She instructed him to look into Meera's background, her health, her relationships, everything. To the outside world, Leela remained calm and kind, complimenting Meera on her wedding outfit and family traditions. But every word she spoke hid a layer of suspicion. She believed she was protecting her son, saving him from a mistake that could ruin his future. What she didn't realize was that in her obsession to control everything, she was about to start a chain of events that would end in tragedy. The investigation she ordered out of pride would soon expose a truth she wasn't ready to face. The morning of the wedding arrived with clear skies and the hum of celebration across the hotel. Guests were already preparing for the big event, unaware of the storm building in one woman's heart. Leela Malhotra received the investigator's report just after sunrise. It was a short document, a few pages that changed everything. The report confirmed that Meera was indeed pregnant, and the investigator's careless note suggested there was a possibility the child might not belong to Arif. Leela's hands trembled as she read the words. Her mind filled with anger, shame, and disbelief. She felt as if the entire world had mocked her, the mother of the groom, humiliated at her own son's wedding. She paced her room, clutching the papers, trying to decide what to do. For a moment, she thought about confronting Meera, but then she imagined the scandal, the whispers, and the disgrace. She thought of the guests, the journalists, the hundreds of people waiting to see her family shine. In that moment, pride became stronger than reason. Her love for her son twisted into something dark and dangerous, a determination to stop the humiliation before it even began. While others decorated the hall with flowers, Leela made her decision in silence. She ordered her driver to bring her something she had once locked away for emergencies, a small vial she had obtained years ago through one of her husband's business associates. She told herself it was the only way to protect Arif, to protect the family's honor. By the time she dressed for the wedding, her face looked calm, her voice steady. No one could guess that behind her graceful smile, she had already chosen death over disgrace. The reception hall glittered with golden lights as the newly married couple entered, hand in hand. Music echoed across the room, and waiters moved swiftly, serving glasses of champagne to every table. Guests cheered, raising their glasses high to toast the union of Arif and Meera. The scent of roses and perfume filled the air, mingling with the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. It was a scene of perfection, elegant, joyful, and full of promise. Yet somewhere in the corner, Leela Malhotra watched every move of her new daughter-in-law with sharp eyes, her expression unreadable. She had been calm all evening, exchanging pleasantries, posing for photographs, and greeting guests. Inside, however, her thoughts were cold and methodical. In her clutch bag, hidden between her tissues and lipstick, was a tiny bottle of clear liquid. It looked harmless, but Leela knew exactly what it could do. She waited patiently for the right moment, her heart steady, her plan rehearsed in silence. When the waiters began refilling drinks for the toast, Leela saw her chance. She moved toward the service counter, smiling as if helping. She picked up Meera's glass, pretending to adjust the placement of the napkins. In a swift, practiced motion, she poured a few drops from the vial into the drink. The poison dissolved instantly, invisible and tasteless. She returned the glass to the tray without a hint of hesitation. A few minutes later, the toast began. Arif lifted his glass toward his bride, and Meera, glowing under the lights, raised hers too. Cameras flashed, guests cheered, and glasses touched. Only one of them held death. In the midst of laughter and music, a single act of hatred blended perfectly into celebration, unseen by anyone. As the evening went on, the celebration reached its peak. The couple had just finished their first dance, and the crowd cheered as confetti fell from above. Meera smiled for the cameras, her cheeks glowing under the lights, her heavy bridal jewelry glinting like stars. But inside, she was starting to feel strange. A dull ache began to form in her stomach, followed by a wave of dizziness that made her grip Arif's arm for support. She brushed it off, thinking it was fatigue or hunger. The day had been long, and she hadn't eaten much. Minutes later, the music grew louder, and the guests began dancing again. Meera tried to join them, forcing a smile, but her vision blurred. The chandelier lights became hazy circles of gold, and her breathing grew shallow. She excused herself from the dance floor, steadying herself against a pillar, hoping the feeling would pass. A server offered her water, but before she could take a sip, her knees buckled. The glass fell from her hand and shattered on the marble floor. Gasps filled the hall. People rushed toward her, forming a circle around the fallen bride. Her body trembled as she tried to speak, but no words came out. Arav ran to her side, panic written all over his face. Guests whispered, wondering if she had fainted or fallen ill. The music stopped, and the joyful atmosphere turned to confusion and fear. Within minutes, paramedics arrived and carried her away on a stretcher, her wedding dress trailing behind like a white ghost. By the time they reached the hospital, Meera's pulse had weakened. Despite every effort by the doctors, she was pronounced dead just before midnight. On the same day, she had become a bride. The shocking death of Meera Malhotra turned the night of celebration into one of horror. Dubai police were immediately called to the hospital after doctors confirmed that the young bride had died under suspicious circumstances. At first, everyone assumed it was exhaustion or a hidden medical issue, but the suddenness of her collapse raised doubts. The police sealed off the reception hall and began questioning guests while forensic teams collected glasses, plates, and leftover food. The air that once smelled of roses and champagne now carried the sharp scent of fear. A preliminary report showed nothing unusual in the food or desserts. However, the glass Meera had used for the toast caught the investigators' attention. It was separated and sent to the forensic lab for analysis. 2 days later, toxicology results confirmed what everyone feared. Meera had been poisoned. A lethal dose of potassium cyanide had been mixed into her drink. The discovery sent shockwaves through the families and the entire Dubai Indian community. Detectives began reconstructing the events of that night using surveillance footage from the hotel. They carefully watched each frame, noting who had touched the bride's glass. In one short clip, they noticed something odd. Arav's mother, Leela, picking up Meera's glass from the service tray moments before the toast. She appeared calm, composed, and returned it quickly, but that small act now carried enormous weight. When questioned, Leela denied everything, insisting she was only helping the waiters. But inconsistencies appeared in her statements, and her sudden cold behavior after Meera's death made the officers suspicious. The glamorous wedding had now turned into a murder investigation, and behind every perfect photograph lay a clue waiting to expose the truth. The news of Meera's mysterious death spread quickly through Dubai and then back to India, igniting a storm of rumors and questions. Newspapers printed headlines calling it the poisoned bride case, and television channels showed footage of the grand wedding that had turned into a crime scene. Reporters camped outside the Malhotra residence, demanding answers. Arav, broken and pale, refused to appear in public, spending most of his time at the police station or locked inside his room. He couldn't accept that his wife, whom he had married only hours before, was gone. Meanwhile, Meera's parents arrived from Mumbai, heartbroken and furious. They accused the Malhotra family of hiding something and demanded justice for their daughter. The two families, once connected by a lavish wedding, now faced each other in courtrooms and police offices. Investigators continued their work, piecing together timelines, interviewing staff, and examining fingerprints. Slowly, the web of deceit began to unfold. Leela Malhotra, once admired for her grace and authority, found herself at the center of suspicion. Guests began recalling her unusual calmness during the chaos, the way she had stood silently while everyone else panicked. Her friends avoided her calls, and her reputation began to crumble. Arav's relatives started distancing themselves, afraid of being dragged into scandal. Despite her denial, the evidence was tightening around her. The poison glass showed traces of her fingerprints, and surveillance footage provided undeniable proof of her involvement. When confronted again by the police, Leela's confidence began to crack. The walls she had built around her pride were collapsing. What had begun as a mother's attempt to protect her family's honor was now turning into a dark tale of guilt, loss, and unbearable regret. The police continued their investigation with precision, determined to close the case with solid evidence. They searched the Malhotra mansion thoroughly, checking every drawer and corner for anything suspicious. Inside Leela's dressing table, they found a small velvet pouch containing a glass vial with chemical residue. Forensic analysis confirmed that it matched the poison found in Meera's blood. The discovery left no room for doubt. When confronted with the results, Leela tried to remain calm, but her hands trembled, and her voice faltered. Days of questioning finally broke her silence, and she confessed. She admitted to slipping the poison into Meera's drink moments before the toast. Her justification was shocking yet pitiful. She claimed she did it to protect her son's future, believing Meera had betrayed him. She spoke of family honor, reputation, and the humiliation she feared if the truth about the pregnancy became public. But the confession took a horrifying turn when the investigators presented a final piece of evidence, the DNA report. The tests revealed that the unborn child was indeed Arif's. Meera had been completely faithful. The pregnancy was not a secret of shame, but a symbol of their love. Leela's face went pale as the realization hit her. Her act of cruelty had been built on a lie, on a false assumption fueled by pride and fear. The room fell silent as she broke down, whispering that she had killed her own son's happiness with her own hands. Arif was shattered by the truth. The woman he loved was gone, and the mother he trusted was now a murderer. The truth that surfaced destroyed whatever was left of the family, leaving behind nothing but guilt and ashes. Leela Malhotra's confession sent shockwaves through both India and Dubai. The trial became one of the most talked-about cases of the decade, drawing massive media attention. Reporters filled the courtroom every day, documenting every tear, every statement, and every moment of silence. When the verdict was finally announced, Leela was sentenced to life imprisonment. She showed no reaction, only lowering her head as cameras flashed around her. Her once proud posture was gone, replaced by quiet emptiness. The woman who had ruled her family with authority now sat alone behind bars, haunted by the faces she had destroyed. Arif never attended another court hearing. After the trial ended, he sold his properties and disappeared from public life. Some said he left Dubai for Europe. Others claimed he returned to India under a new name. No one truly knew. All that remained was the memory of a man who had lost everything in one night: his wife, his child, and the mother he once adored. The hotel where the wedding took place also carried the shadow of tragedy. Staff members reported strange incidents: flickering lights, whispers in the ballroom, and guests feeling sudden chills near the stage where Meera had collapsed. The management eventually stopped hosting weddings in that hall. Over the years, the story of Meera Sharma turned into a haunting cautionary tale. People whispered about her whenever wedding gossip arose, calling her the bride who died in her own celebration. Her death became a symbol of how pride and suspicion can destroy even the most beautiful moments. The love that should have begun a new life ended in silence, leaving behind a legend that time could never erase.